Systems word problems are kind of interesting. You have to create your equations first, and once you have your equations, then you can solve the system just like a normal system that you've been solving for days. So as you read through the information, you've got to find the sentence that contains the equation. Okay, so John and May each improved their yards by planting hostas and geraniums. So we have two different things. Okay, there's going to be your variables, hostas and geraniums. So if I highlight them in different colors, there we go. So they bought their supplies from the same store. John spent $106 on 10 hostas and 4 geraniums. So 10 hostas and 4 geraniums for a total of $106. Right there's an equation. So you have $106 total is going to be the cost of both the hostas and the geraniums. So we bought 10 hostas and 4 geraniums. So we don't know the value of each of them, but we know we have 10 hostas and 4 geraniums. So there's one equation. Then you keep reading. May spent $149 on 13 hostas and 8 geraniums. And total $104. So there's the other equation right there. So we want to find the cost of one hosta and the cost of one geranium. So we have two different cost equations. Let's see, this one was $149 on 13 hostas and 8 geraniums. So you create your system of equations and then you solve it. So with this one, it's set up a little differently than the equations that you've seen on the previous assignments, but you can move the 106 and the 49 to the other side if that makes you feel better. You can work with it as it is. Notice I'm not using X's and Y's anymore. I used a letter that represented the hostas and represented the geraniums. You could use X and Y. If you do, okay, let me show you what that could look like. If you have 10x plus 4y equals 106 and 13x plus 8y equals 149. But if you do that, you also want to say what x stands for and what y stands for. So x is the cost of the hostas, and y is the cost of the geraniums. So if you use H and G instead of X and Y, it's a little bit easier to remember which one's which. Because at the end, you want to tell me what's the cost of one hosta and what's the cost of one geranium. So you want to be able to differentiate between what the X represents and what the Y represents. Previously, the X and the Y didn't represent an actual thing. It just represented a quantity. So once you got your equations, then just solve it however you would like to. I will point out that the 8 is twice the 4 on the geraniums here. So if I double the first equation but make it a negative and don't change the second equation, that's going to allow us to eliminate the geraniums. So we have 106 times 2, negative 2, so it's going to be negative 212 equals negative 20H minus 8G. And I'm not going to change the other equation because I want the 8G's to cancel out. And then once I got that, then I'm just going to add up the columns. So I have negative 212 plus 149. It's going to get me to negative 63 equals negative 20 and positive 13 is going to be negative 7H, and the G's cancel out. So if I divide by negative 7, I'm going to have $9 for a hosta. Okay, and then to find how much the geraniums cost, you just plug it back in just like normal. and solve for the other variable. So I'm going to take the first equation and plug in for h in that equation. So I have 10 times 9 plus 4 times g. So that tells us we spent $90 on hostas. And then I'm going to subtract the hostas away from the total that we spent. 106 take away 90. I'm going to be left with $16 on the geraniums. So, oops, I forgot the 4 in front of the G. If I divide the 16 by the 4, I'm going to have the geraniums are costing $4 each. So there's my answer. Okay, $4 for the geraniums. So geraniums cost $4, and the hostas cost $9. So there you go. Make sure you label, you tell me which one's which, depending on the situation. Another good word problem are sums and differences of two numbers. And they're pretty straightforward once you find the pattern. But difference means subtract. Right, so you're going to subtract the two numbers, and it's going to give us 3. So if I take a minus b or x minus y, doesn't matter, it's going to be 3. Their sum means to add. So you're going to take the same two numbers, a plus b, and get 17. And then you just solve the system. Notice that the b's are already opposites, so those will just eliminate. So we have 2 times a equals 20, and then we solve that by dividing by 2. So one of the numbers is 10, and then if I take plug 10 back into one of the equations and solve for b, so if I subtract 10 from 17, there's the other number. So my two numbers are 10 and 7. It doesn't specify what order to put them in, just says find the numbers. So it doesn't matter if you put the small one first or the big one first, it doesn't matter. You just need to find the two numbers. So that's pretty much all you got to do with the word problems. You got to find the equation within the sentences. Okay, so there's one equation, and then there's the rest of it there, and then there's the other equation. All right, so go ahead and work through those. If you got questions, ask. Make sure you're showing your work because your answer key is online. So if you want credit for your assignment, show your work.